Well, let's get started. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Coralville City Council to order on June 26, 2021 at about 6:38 p.m. Via Zoom. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Foster.
Present.
Gross.
Here.
Wynn.
Present.
Dodds.
Present.
Goodrich.
Here. Here.
All council members are present, as is the mayor, city administrator, city clerk, city attorney, and several other city staff members. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Okay, moved by Goodrich, seconded by Foster. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Agenda's approved. Moving on to item 4, citizen comments. This is for any item that's not already on the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to speak to us tonight about anything else? Or any written comments, Mr. Clerk?
There's 2 hands raised from the Gokins, but I believe they're here for one of the topics, so I don't see any citizen comments at this time.
No. I just want to find out. Oh, turn yourself. Turn it off. I want to find out if the paper that I submitted before the meeting got distributed to the councilors.
Yes. Yes, it did. Okay. Well, if there's no other comments, then we will move on to item number 5, which is a proclamation this evening that I have the pleasure of doing, designating National Gun Violence Survivors Week. City of Coralville proclamation. Whereas every year, nearly 39,000 Americans are killed in acts of violence and nearly 85,000 more are shot and wounded. And whereas in Iowa, in the years between 2009 and 2018, saw a 35% increase in gun suicide and a 75% increase in gun homicide, compared to a 19% increase and 18% increase nationwide, respectively. And whereas by early February, more Americans are killed with guns than are killed in our peer countries in an entire year. And whereas a gun violence survivor is anyone who has personally experienced gun violence, and forms of gun violence can include but are not limited to gun suicides, gun homicides, domestic violence involving a gun, and unintentional shootings. And whereas 58% of American adults, including 68% of Black and Latino Americans, are someone or someone they care for has experienced gun violence in their lifetime, demonstrating the reach and impact that gun violence has in communities across America. And whereas firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens, and whereas Americans and cities across the nation are working to end senseless violence by advocating for common sense gun safety legislation and by commemorating National Gun Violence Awareness Week, cities will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives stolen by gun violence. Whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our community safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John A. Lundell, Mayor of the City of Coralville, proclaim February 1 through 7, 2021 as National Gun Violence Awareness Week. And I encourage all citizens to support their community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and honor and value human lives. Signed and sealed this 26th day of January 2021, John A. Lundell, Mayor. My pleasure to sign this proclamation. And Mr. Clerk, is Dr. English, who requested this, is she with us this evening?
I don't see her in attendance.
Okay, well, we will get a copy of this proclamation to her in final form, and thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to item number 6, Iowa River Landing Retail Lease Public Hearing. Item A is, this is for a 5-year lease agreement with the option to renew one additional 5-year term with Cookies and Dreams for Unit C104 in the Iowa River Landing District. So item A is a report on any alternate proposals.
We did not receive any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Item B is a public hearing on disposal of an interest in real property and soliciting alternative proposals for leasing of Unit C104 IRL Part 2 condominiums. I will open the public hearing. Or is there anyone that would like to speak to us on this topic?
No one in attendance to speak on it, and no written comments were received.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll close the public hearing and consider the resolution.
Resolution approving the disposition of property and approving a lease agreement with Cookies and Dreams LLC, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Foster, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Nguyen, I'm sorry, should be more formal. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
The resolution passes all ayes. Item D is a resolution for intent to dispose of interest in real property. This is for a 5-year lease agreement with the option to extend for 3 additional 5-year terms for 920 East 2nd Avenue, Suite 145 in the Iowa River Landing District. This is setting a public hearing, and this public hearing will actually be held at our next council meeting, or not our next one, but on our February 23rd council meeting. And this is the property that was in the newspaper and in the media this past week, where the business called Anthropology is interested in taking over this property. So consider the resolution, please.
Resolution of intent to dispose of an interest in real property and soliciting alternate proposals for the leasing of 920 East 2nd Avenue, Suite 145, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Gross, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Dodds. Discussion? Roll call.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes. Moving on to item 7, Clear Creek Mitigation Bank. This project will finance the design and construction of stormwater drainage improvements as part of the city's Clear Creek Restoration and Mitigation Project for a price of not to exceed $2,500,000. Item A is a public hearing on a loan agreement in the principal amount not to exceed $2,500,000. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that'd like to speak to us or any written comments?
No one in attendance to make comments, and there are no written comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll close the public hearing. Consider the resolution.
Resolution taking additional action to enter into a loan agreement in the amount not to exceed $2,500,000, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Nguyen, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Any discussion? Roll call.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
The resolution passes all ayes. Item C for the same project is a public hearing on the proposal to enter into one or more loan agreements and to borrow money thereunder in a principal amount not to exceed the $2,500,000. I'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments?
Once again, no one's in attendance for public comments, and there were no written comments.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, I'll close the public hearing and consider the resolution.
Resolution taking additional action to enter into a loan agreement in the amount not to exceed $2,500,000, introduced by Councilmember Dodd, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Foster. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd just like to report that we do not intend to borrow under both of these provisions. It would be one or the other. And there are two different mechanisms for making loans through the state revolving fund SRF program. And so this would enable us to take advantage of one or the other. And we will decide at a later date which one would be the most appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Anybody else? Roll call.
Goodrich,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution passes all ayes. Moving on to item 8, Forevergreen Heights. A number of items here regarding a PUDA site plan and preliminary plat for a 251.24 acre development between North Dubuque Street and North Liberty Road, previously known as Scanlon Farms. We'll start this out with a building and zoning report and a planning and zoning report by Dave Johnson, our Director of Community Development. Then we'll go into a public hearing and invite comments for that. And then the public hearing will be closed and the discussion will take place with amongst the council on the various action that needs to be taken. So Dave, would you like to give your reports, please?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. This property is currently zoned RPUD1, Residential Planned Unit Development, and it is approved for residential use. Ordinance number 2016-1004 approved this rezoning on February 23rd, 2016. Following that, approved by resolution number 2017-30 was a PUDA site plan. John, if you wouldn't mind, could you navigate to that document? John Hines. And if you wouldn't mind scrolling to the end of that document. Yeah, scroll up a little bit. I'm sorry. Two more. One more. And keep going up. But if you could scroll up, please. Okay. I can give you the background on that while that happens. So the development that was approved in 2017 was for a 234 acre mixed residential project. That project had 1,032 units. That has been provided to City Council in your packets and is labeled 2017. The development also contained a proposed 14-acre school site. So the project in 2017 had an average density of 4.41 dwelling units per acre, including the school site. Excluding the school site, which would be a more apples to apples comparison, the average density was 4.69 dwelling units per acre. Both scenarios fell well under the 6 dwelling units per acre, which is considered a low density residential development and in compliance with the Coralville community plan at the time of approval. Currently, Kaiser Holdings LLC is proposing the amended site plan. This plan is labeled 2021. This plan is for a 208 acre mixed residential development with a total of 1,002 new units. The reduced acreage is due in part to the school site, which is also shown on the plan, but it's no longer being incorporated into the development or part of the acreage. The average density of this development is 4.8 dwelling units per acre, and this is considered a low-density residential development. The current proposal includes 328 single-family units, 442 2 to 4 family attached units, and 232 multifamily units roughly bounded by North Liberty Road, Rustic Ridge Road, and Dubuque Street. This project is planned to occur over 6 phases in approximately 6 years, and the developer would like to begin phase 1 this spring. This proposal is very close in density and design as to the concept presented to City Council April 28th, 2020. That concept had 993 units and had an average density of 4.75 dwelling units per acre. At the time, City Council generally supported that concept and encouraged it be developed further. So Forevergreen Heights proposes some single-family detached lot dimensions, which align closest with Coralville's R1B small lot single-family residential district, which requires a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet and 50 feet of frontage. There are 328 planned single-family lots. 59% of those would fall within the small lot single-family residential district bulk requirements. Similar developments in the community that have lots at site include Pine Hill Estates, north of the recreation facility, the stables, as well as Northridge subdivision. The remaining 41% of the lots align with Coralville's R1 single-family residential district, which requires 80 feet of frontage and 8,000 square feet. Very nice homes are and can be delivered on smaller lots. And the site plan that we provided contains examples of the types of homes that can be developed. John, do you have that? So here's some of the examples that the developer has provided us. And this is a typical home that could be located on a 50-foot wide lot. These concepts, as well as the multifamily, as well as the townhome concepts, will be developed further should the site plan and preliminary plat be approved. And of note, the development also proposes multifamily buildings on shared lots. In return, though, the community also will be receiving 22.77 acres of open space for recreation in the development. That will be dedicated to the city, and those will be public places. The development has an average density of 4.8 dwelling units per acre, which can be considered consistent with the overall Coralville Community Plan land use map designations of low, medium, and high density residential for the subject property. The development also can be considered consistent with Coralville's housing goals to promote attainable housing, as well as a variety of housing types. Affordable and varied housing is essential for communities to advance growth, economic development, workforce retention and development, as well as equity. Available and affordable quality housing is a significant quality of life consideration important to both public and private sectors. The Coralville Community Plan also supports creating walkable and connected developments. The proposed development is less than 1,000 feet from Liberty High School and planned as a future elementary school site adjacent to the north end of the development. Schools are more than educational institutions. They're also important social components for kids and families. They function as community and activity centers, support networks, as well as safe places to recreate. The proposed development will provide important physical and social connections for Forevergreen Heights and area residents. City staff is in support of the proposal. The development as presented supports the aforementioned goals of the community plan. Their current proposal has 30 fewer units than the 2017 approved development, and the average density is nearly identical. The proposed average density of 4.8 dwelling units per acre is considered low density residential and conforms with the Coralville land use plan map. The Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this item at their January 6th meeting. By a vote of 5-2, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend denial of the proposed site plan. And by a vote of 6-1, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial of the preliminary plat. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
John, you're muted.
I was going to try and make it through a meeting without being muted, being told that I was muted. Sorry about that. I was saying that now as we've coming to the point of, in the process of opening the public hearing, I was saying that I know there are a number of people that would like to express their opinions to us this evening. We look forward to hearing from you. We've received numerous pieces of mail, email that the city clerk has forwarded to us. Some came to us directly and some came through the city clerk, but all council members and the mayor have received those copies of the correspondence. And if you have a question about it, the clerk can identify who we received input from. I believe that you received some instructions from the clerk. This is a new process for us tonight, frankly, because of the pandemic and having to carry out this public hearing over Zoom. But I think it will go fine. Even if we were in person, I would tell you that we really would appreciate respectfulness. We would request that your comments be limited to 5 minutes, and I will be having a timer, and I will ask you to stop when you approach that 5-minute mark and begin to go over it. Please don't repeat what other people have said. We understand, if one person has heard it, the message has been received. So no need to repeat. So we'll be opening this up. I think it's what we should do is open the public hearing and allow the developers representative, whoever that may be tonight that's with us, to perhaps make some opening comments on the project itself, and then we'll invite further public discussion. So staff, unless I've forgotten something, I'm going to open the public hearing. And persons wishing to speak, use the feature to raise their hand, and John Hines, our communications specialist, will then be calling on you when it's your turn to speak. So let's open the public hearing, and I would invite a representative of the development group to speak to us. Hello,
Mayor, I note that. I'm sorry, Mayor, I note for this request, Matt, Adam, and I believe Caleb Smith is available to speak to this.
Okay.
Hello, Council.
We can hear you, Matt.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Matt Adam. I'm representative of the developer on this project. Also on is my engineer. If anyone has any technical questions, Caleb Smith with McClure Engineering is available, as well as the owner's representative of Scanlon Family Farms. I believe Mr. Bob Downer is on as well. And I think they're on the next agenda item anyway. So I've been working with the owner, the Scanlon Family Farms, and city staff for approximately a year on this plan before the council meeting tonight. We met in work session on April 28th, and I presented a very similar, if not identical, plan to what's being considered tonight. This development does have some challenges in the sense that, as the city council knows, water was brought down North Liberty Road to basically Rustic Ridge Road, but sewer is clear up North Liberty Road by what the proposed Forevergreen Road intersection is. But we think we've got through all those challenges and come up with a good site plan. I think I want to start with the old plan that was approved by council in 2017. As Dave said, this was about 4.41 units per acre, but it included the school district site, which has been sold. That was sold to the Iowa City Community School District, and as my understanding is that the school is going to put an elementary school there and maybe even a middle school. They certainly have enough land to do both, but I will say that I've not been able to get a firm plan from the school district on what they're going to do. But that necessitated a new plan, and I think we've come up with a new plan that is better than the plan the council adopted in 2017. From a density standpoint, we're at 4.8 units per acre. But if you compare apples to apples and add back in the school site of 40 acres, we'd be down around 4 units an acre, which is even less. relative to the 2017 plan. Also, I think the new plan is better because there's more single-family homes. We have about 328. 41% of those are the R1 zoning and about 59% of the R1B zoning. If you look at the plan, we tried to put all of those single-family homes along Dubuque Street because of the location being a transitional area between the lower density residential homes and high traffic streets and medium density users. With Dubuque North Liberty Road and the planned Forevergreen Road, the entire development really does fit an R1B criteria. This also transitions from the rural estate lots to the east as you move to a more traditional urban development. All the lots that back up to Dubuque Street are larger than 8,000 square feet, which is the R1 minimum. Also to note, some time ago, before I was involved, the owner planted several trees along Dubuque Street as an additional buffer to the larger homes to the east. And those are still there, and we plan to keep them and develop around them. This plan provides a wide variety of different types of housing, and they're both attainable and affordable, which is, I think, a plus. The plan is also very pedestrian friendly. In addition to donating the open space to the city, we are also enhancing Scanlon Farms Road. If you look closely at the plan, you'll see from the proposed Forevergreen Road going up to the schools, both the high school across the street and the middle or the elementary school that's proposed, we have a green belt proposed. A green belt is a sidewalk on the east side of Scanlon Farms Road with several trees. We're projecting about 160 trees that are 14 to 16 feet tall, 25 to 30 feet apart, which would make a very nice added pedestrian-friendly, walkable green belt. There's also sidewalks along Forevergreen Road, both sides of it, throughout the development. Also, I think this development is compatible with developments in surrounding areas. For example, there's a development at the corner of North Liberty Road and Dubuque Street. Although it's in North Liberty, Donovan Estates was approximately a 45-acre development that I also did, and that had 232 units, which is about 5 units per acre. So this is even less than that and compatible with other developments close by. The development, I think, is compatible and consistent with what the school intends to do on the 40-acre parcel, as well as the high school across the street. Most importantly, as Dave said, this plan is consistent with the land use map that the council adopted about 5 months ago in August of 2020. That land use map divides this 200-acre piece into 3 sections: low density, which is up to 6 units per acre, partial medium density, which is 6 to 16 units per acre, and then some areas are even designated as high density, which could be 16 units per acre. So at 4.8 units per acre, the plan complies with the land use plan. And if you look at max capacity, there's potentially way more than 4.8 units per acre that the council even considered when they adopted the land use plan. So we're below the lowest of the low density. As I mentioned, there's more usable open space than what the 2017 plan had. 21.33 acres of park space we're going to be giving to the city. In addition, as part of the North Park, which is the one by the pond, as part of the development, we plan to grade a 12-foot flat area around that pond. We plan to grade a 150-foot by 225-foot practice field for the public to use. And we plan on grading a parking area for the council to make improvements as part of our grading plan. On the South Park, down by Rustic Ridge Road, we plan to grade for a future shelter building and playground pad, as well as grade for a parking area. In addition to the 21 acres of open space, I think if you look comparing apples to apples again with the 2017 plan, there'll be way more open space on this 250 acres with the school taking up 40 acres of it. The school's not going to build houses. They'll be built buildings and playgrounds and other amenities consistent with elementary schools. We have worked with staff to work through the stormwater detention, and we've achieved that goal. We've got a good stormwater plan that it was approved and blessed by staff. So the other thing I'll touch on briefly was a traffic study that's in your packets. We included the school parcel in our future projections. We went through and did estimates on what traffic the new elementary school might produce. This traffic study was completed based off the Johnson County planning organizational model, and that model was amended to include our development, the school site, and the commercial site that is also that white spot on south of Forevergreen Road and North Liberty Road. That's not part of this plan because it's a separate commercial PUD that I think council is going to consider next on its agenda. The Metropolitan Planning Organization promulgates traffic study standards for counties and cities. As I'm sure you know, this is the authority that the city relies on. The city of Coralville, your staff has reviewed this traffic study and has no further comment. And the Johnson County Metropolitan Planning Organization has also reviewed it and has no further comment. The other thing I'll talk about on traffic, I do understand that this is going to increase traffic, but I think this plan does a good job in helping to minimize the effects of that increased traffic. We have added a second roundabout at the corner of North Liberty Road and Forevergreen Road. That roundabout was not required as of the 2045 study. It wouldn't be required for the next 15 or 20 years, but we're adding it anyway to calm traffic and assist with traffic control now and in the future. And I believe that when both roundabouts are done and Forevergreen Road punches through to the west, that the natural flow of traffic will be to come up to Buke Street and then pass out through through Forevergreen Road. I don't see much traffic going north on Dubuque Street with the infrastructure that we're building. I would also say that this development is around arterial roads or collectors, and that is Forevergreen Road, Dubuque Street, and North Liberty Road. So in summary, Council, I believe this current plan is an improvement from what the city approved in 2017. It's consistent with your land use plan. It's compatible with the character of the surrounding properties and the developments that have been done near it. So we would request that the council approve the site plan and the preliminary plat. And if approved, we would commence development on approximately 100 acres of this on the south and west portion in the spring or as soon as Mother Nature allows. I'm happy to answer any questions any of you may have. And also, if there's any technical questions, as a reminder, my engineer, Caleb Smith, is available. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I'm sure the council will have some questions for you. Probably most of those will come up during the discussion after the end of the public hearing, unless there's a burning question that a council member has now. Okay, well then let's move on into the remainder of the public discussion. Be sure and please state your name and your address. And as I said before, try and limit your comments to 5 minutes. And John Hines will be in control of who speaks first, second, and third, and so forth. The public hearing's open.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, my name is Edgar Samaniego and my wife is Elizabeth Samaniego. Our address is 2900 North Liberty Road. And if you look at the map that has been provided by the developers, we are the only single family home that is in the whole property. My understanding is that this house where we live now was the original Scanlon farmhouse. So, you know, we are going to be the mostly affected by the development. My disclosure is I'm not a developer, I'm not an engineer, but I just want to discuss some of the items presented by the developers. First, you know, my understanding is that this plan was submitted in 2016, and at that time there was no pandemic. And my understanding that the projection was that maybe there were a lot of people that were going to be moving to the area. So I don't understand very well who is going to be living in all these units. We're thinking or planning about like 3,000 to 4,000 people moving to the development once it's finalized. You know, given the pandemic and the current circumstances, I don't foresee or haven't seen any new industries or businesses moving to the area. If anything, a lot of businesses are closing. So I don't understand very well who's going to be occupying all these units, given the current situation. My other concern will be the change in taxes that we'll have to pay given the development. Now, given the location of the property, my understanding is a rural area, and this is definitely going to affect the taxes that we pay because compared to the other lot sizes that are proposed by the developer, our property is relatively large. I find some of the proposals by the engineer about traffic unrealistic. If we are thinking that 3,000 to 4,000 people are going to be moving to this small parcel of land, how is not going to affect traffic, same as all the other contaminations such as noise and light. I also would like to question about the character of the development. If you look at the properties located in this area, most of the properties are like farm-like properties with large lots and family units with a lot of space. If you're gonna planning on building multi-family units, that's definitely out of character with the spread out of the families that we currently live in this area. The other concern will be access to resources. Our house and multiple houses in the area have wells. How the access to water is going to be affected by moving 3,000 to 4,000 new inhabitants to this area. That's one of the concerns.
And maintaining our privacy as well. We don't have any neighbors currently, and now we're going to have 4,000 potentially.
So again, I think that development is great for the city, and we always look forward to improve our community. But I just don't think that the way the plan and the developers are planning to build in this area is gonna improve the character and the life quality of the families that live in this area. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Duly noted.
Do we just pipe in, or how do we work?
Yeah, feel free, Mr. Now. Yep, the name and address, please.
Sorry, my name is Pete Now. I live on Stony Point Lane. Thanks for the opportunity to present our opinions as it relates to the responsible development of this piece of land. As is typical with almost everyone, I spent a while researching and Googling urban development and urban planning just to figure out what I should expect. I thought one of the things that was most interesting that I read was a tenet that I read saying that we should engage the community. They know best what they need. Community outreach means asking the community what they need. I spent a long time talking to people in Cherry Lane, Spring Valley, Auburn East, Forest Gate, and Locust Ridge. Unfortunately, to all of us that surround this area in the use of these roads that come and go, this idea really falls woefully short of ideal and well-conceived to us. With 100% certainty, I can tell you that there are huge concerns, reservations as it's currently proposed. A couple of things that I look at, the developer has said over and over again that they would lead you to believe that this has lots of usable community green space. Rustic Ridge Road, as it's existing, has several driveways which make grading the area to a more functional park essentially impossible. That area is all hills and ravines. I will never agree that this is going to be usable, good green space. It will never serve the community like Penn Meadows or a Centennial Park where there's flat, good areas to play for kids. The other area is a water runoff swamp that again offers no areas for recreation, is obligated by the water conservation rules due to the addition of so much concrete. And that's, again, not somewhere where kids can play or where the community can use it. The argument that there are community spaces for kids to enjoy is just factually inaccurate. It's misleading and diverts the attention from how incredibly dense this development is. The functional density is significantly higher than stated in the plan because the developer is using these unusable areas to decrease the perceived overall density of the land that is being used. As they say at the last meeting, this is much more dense than anywhere else in the city or anything else that's been done close to this in 50 years. That was from the state at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. That to me is highly problematic. If you look at similar areas to this, they're in much closer proximity to resources such as public transportation and shopping areas like groceries, drugstores, etc. It's a big miss to me. It appears that this developer is treating this area like it's adjacent to Highway 965 or on First Avenue in Coralville. There are some really nice areas or development in those areas, and this is just not that land. And I think it's wishful thinking to treat it as such. I will echo again what I said at the last one, that I'm really concerned over the traffic pattern resulting in the addition of at least 2,500 people, if not 3,000 or 400. I think that we're using an outdated traffic study. You have no current info on the traffic burden of the high school and the associated new developments to the north and to the west. I'm not sure that we've accounted for the fact that there's land around North Liberty, which is currently farmland that will almost certainly be developed, and not in 50 years, but soon. There's two major roads that are feeding in and out, and they're always going to be major. I don't know what the plan is for this. I don't know if we're going to act proactively or just cross our fingers and hope it works out, because it feels that's what the developer is doing. I think to argue that the study is still irrelevant 3 years later when the high school filled up so quickly that the planned addition was necessary ahead of time seems crazy. And I think using a temporary medical issue to push through a permanent plan by saying we don't need to redo this traffic study is again, it just doesn't make sense. I don't think that we can say with any degree of confidence or accuracy that this outdated study is relevant. And I think it needs to be done when the code limitations have ended, school is back consistently 100% in person. And we've had a frank conversation with North Liberty about how they're going to develop that land, because again, it could make it even more dense. I also have concerns about the increased demand on police and fire presence. I lived in a neighborhood that was of similar density when I was in my training. We have friends that lived in a similar neighborhood over by West High. Crime was 100% an issue in both those areas just because more density, that's what you see. I think that I don't know any comparable developments where there's density in Coralville and what the distance is from police and fire. I understand that there's been a verbal okay that this will be fine, but that doesn't feel consistent with data that says there are similar areas with a rate of police and fire utilization and what's going to happen when we're so far away from the closest Coralville Police Department. I also think it's important to acknowledge that there's a vested interest in the city of Coralville to create more diverse schools. I think it's very clear that when this high school went in, that there's a fundamental shift in how this land was viewed by the city. This is seen as an opportunity to increase the diversity of socioeconomic diversity of this area. I don't think that's a great foundation upon which to build or to develop an urban planning, because it doesn't regard or it doesn't take into account what kind of land we're surrounding. To create an area that has none of the resources typically seen in a very dense development in the middle of a small communities where there's lots of little neighborhoods is ignoring the limitations this land poses. This isn't the peninsula size-wise. It's not the size-wise to the west of the high school, which is 200 units. This is a massive development that's better suited for a more urban presence rather than where this land currently sits. And lastly, and I think that it's critical that you guys understand this, we've been talking a lot about this. This isn't a group of people that are looking to keep out riffraff. It's not that we don't want this developed. It's far from that. I went to Washington High School in Cedar Rapids. It was incredibly diverse. I routinely see old classmates in my job and people that come from all socioeconomic backgrounds. And when we talk about high school, we all loved it because it was incredibly diverse. It was a melting pot and we all got along. And I thought that was really, really important. When my son Jack ended up going to Penn, I was excited because I think that that's also socioeconomically very diverse. And I think that's critical. I think that we all want this area developed, and I can't stress enough that we agree it should be developed. I just love to see us stick with something that's more responsible as far as density, because I think as it sets now, it's
okay, Mr. Now, I gave you about 6 minutes there, so.
Okay, that was it. Actually, I was done. Thanks for your time, guys.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman or Ms.?
Yes, Lauren Hoffman.
Uh-huh.
So Lauren Hoffman with Holland Hall Engineers, 1860 Boyson Road, Hiawatha. I am not representing the applicant. I actually am representing the landowner. I just wanted to add some additional clarification and kind of to the topics of density and traffic. There's on the PUD site plan, there's 2 parcels that are labeled as multifamily. They're brown in color. They indicate that it's going to equate to 232 units. I just wanted to kind of let you know what the current plan of those are. It's not intended like what you would normally envision when you think of multifamily, where it would be a multifamily complex with 60 or 100 units per building sort of thing. The intent there is the one next to Dubuque Street. The vision at this time is to be like a co-op, 55 plus sort of community. And the multifamily tract adjacent to North Liberty Road was at this time a vision of a retirement type community. The goal, I guess, is to allow folks that live in this region to be able to transition to different types of housing within kind of the same vicinity so that they can stay near family or stay in the place that they love. So I just wanted to make sure that when folks see the multifamily aspect of this, other than some fourplexes that are part of the applicant's plan, those other multifamily are, not typical what you might think of when you think of the multifamily. And again, with both of those types of uses for the multifamily, you can expect a lower traffic volume than, again, what you would typically see with a multifamily type development. Retirement villages, communities have a fraction of the traffic that a multifamily apartment complex would have. With that, I would just open up any questions that you might have of me at some point, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. I appreciate that. Next up. Jana Whistles. Go ahead.
Am I being heard?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Jana Wessels, 3831 Cedar Drive, Northeast, North Liberty. I followed this quite closely the last time it came around, although I was surprised and thank Thor for sending me what was actually approved in 2017. I was operating on a 2016 plat that we had seen and had been part of a public hearing, which was 894 units. And those units were 80 feet wide, 100 feet wide. So, I beg to differ, that was less dense, but even so, 2016 and what was ultimately approved in 2017 was extremely controversial. There were so much dissent, protest, disagreement. So, the council then did approve it, but, two wrongs don't make a right. And I would say there is a new planning and zoning committee, the new membership, there are new council members, and taking a fresh look at this is really important. The staff who support it remain the same, but the citizens, we've aged, we've changed, but the neighborhood really hasn't. We have a new high school. We welcome the development that goes along with that. But the traffic, the density, and again, the challenges about water that Mr. Adams acknowledged, we think we work around it. The water tower that is part of this, the infrastructure that's needed for water, sewer, police, fire, EMT, none of this exists. This is the first we're hearing this time around about the apartment buildings being retirement buildings. And that's audits coming from, that wasn't mentioned by Mr. Adams, but nevertheless, I'm one of those people that would be transitioning, and I don't see that as a realistic transition place. Again, we welcome a responsible development, but putting another 3,000 people in this landlocked area, and the quality of life, it's really going to suffer. And I think ultimately, a decade from now, this will be a real liability for Coralville. Again, it will be sort of out of the area of the city, but it does nothing. And it's such an opportunity to do something that will be in character of the area, be more dense than we currently have with some of the acreages, but be livable. And this is not livable. It's really I can't say enough to urge you to reconsider, slow it down. There are many options, highly desirable land that will be developed, and you have a lot of options that you can go with. So please think carefully before you totally change the character of this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wessels. Mr. Podolsky, excuse me if I mispronounced your name, you are next.
Well, thank you. My name is Stan Podolsky, and I live at 3817 Cedar Drive, directly across the street from this proposed development. I think I know I sent you people a email with some of my concerns, and I won't go over those except for the one right now, and that is when we talk about this traffic, it seems to me that people are talking about the traffic that is around this facility, around this development. But as I mentioned in my email, look downstream. If people are going to take this road, this additional 2,000-3,000 cars go south to either go to Coralville or to Iowa City, they've got to pass through, I think I made my notes here, on Dubuque Street, they go by 84 private entrances and exits and some feeder roads as well before they get to any road where they can exit, which would either be Oakdale Boulevard or I-80. On North Liberty Road, there are 47 of those. Now think about your neighbors who have to get onto this road with all these additional traffic counts coming down at them. I don't know how people can say this thing is a low density housing when you take this particular piece of ground and you compare it to, like, which I did in my email, to a city of Solon, which is over 800 acres in size, and you're talking about a little over 200 acres. Same population, 1/4 the footprint. Now, I got some other thoughts I'll try to get through real quick. That was coming off my previous email. I'm 82 years old, so it isn't going to make a lot of difference to me what this project, if it gets passed or not. It won't impact my remaining years, unfortunately. But I've lived in this vicinity for over 40 years, and my wife and I have thoroughly enjoyed the rural environment. This development, I don't care how you look at it, is not gonna, it'll completely change our environment out here. There's no two ways about it. I grew up on a farm, and as a typical farm boy, I came to appreciate acreages and acres. Well, Dr. Scanlon had a love for his acres as well. I did not know him, but I have spoken with people who did know him. He took pride in his farm ground, so much so that he could create a trust to preserve the acres into a farming enterprise. Well, as they say, what one man constructs, another man can destroy. So here we are. I would guess even Dr. Scanlon, even though he wanted to protect this property, if he was alive today, would look at the North Quarter development and say, my ground probably is more valuable in some type of development. But there'd be no way Dr. Scanlon would look at this and say, let's build a city the size of Solon on this. The city size of Solon. He would never do that. So now, councilors, you have an awesome responsibility in front of you to decide how you want this ground to be developed. I want you to consider this. If this property was truly in the confines of the city limits of Coralville, you would not allow such a development next door to your existing residence. I don't think you would. Now, we know this is inside the city limits of Coralville because of how it was annexed, but I doubt many people really know that it is a Coralville piece of property. If they do, it's probably only because of the controversies that have happened out here. Councilors, please think of this as part of Coralville proper, not an outpost. It's kind of an outpost, but don't think of it that way. Think of it if it's in your own backyard. You can insist on a much better development plan than what is proposed this evening. You've made great developments inside your city in the past, but this will not be a development that you will look at in the future and say, that was a good one. It won't be good for you. It won't be good for the adjacent property owners. And I don't think it'll even be good for the inhabitants if this thing is developed as designed. The only benefits I can determine who is going to benefit from this is the developer and the landowner. So think of what your decision will do tonight. If you accept it, it will forever appear as a schematic diagram so indicates. Forever, never change. Can't. Once it's developed, that's what it is. If you deny the request, you give yourselves the opportunity to explore other possibilities that could be appealing to all of us in this area, not just the financiers.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Wadowski. Your time is up, and we'll move on. Appreciate it.
Can I make one last comment?
Really quick.
Please, your planning and zoning, am I muted?
Nope, go ahead.
Am I dead?
Nope, we hear you.
Your planning and zoning commission denied this request. They must know something. Please abide by their decision and deny it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Shelley Mott, you are next up, please. Go ahead, Ms. Mott. I wonder if perhaps, are you on mute, Ms. Mott? We don't hear you. It appears that she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, now we can.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. Hey, your address, please.
3828 Stony Point Lane Northeast. I live directly across from the proposed subdivision. I guess that leads right into my first question, which was we participated in the first planning and zoning meeting, which was denied. And so my first question was, what was that meeting for if that was denied 6-1? Now what and why? And what was the purpose of that meeting if it was denied? And how does that lead into this meeting? I guess that would be one of my questions after I speak, if somebody could answer that question for us. What's changed from that original proposal and what happens from that? One of my other questions would be, what are we doing with the city of North Liberty in terms of talking with them about what they're doing with the huge chunk of land south of their town, the big, huge flat piece of land that needs to be developed, and their land south and their land east, because they're going to eventually be developing that land, I assume, and wanting to make sure that we're doing something in conjunction with what they're doing so that they're not going to be putting in a huge subdivision with our huge subdivision that we then have to then worry about. What are we going to be doing? Isn't it going to be balanced? Are we going to have traffic issues that are going to bleed into each other? And are we going to fill up our school system that we're then going to be dealing with issues? And so I'm wanting to make sure that our two towns are talking to each other and we're being forward thinking instead of trying to deal with an emergency after the fact of what we're going to do. Matt Adam talked about he's developing an area that is next to the high school and that we should all assume that it's going to be just like that. And so I guess my question is for Matt, is this going to be just like that? Because the information that I've received is that it is not going to be just like that, that these homes are going to be not just like that. They're going to have very few options. They're going to have 1, 2, 3 options, and that if anybody wants to make changes to these homes, that they're going to be made after the fact. They're going to have limited options. and that they're going to have to make those changes after they close on these homes, and they're going to be cookie cutter homes. I've spoken with some of the city council members that have indicated that we do need lower income housing for people to be able to build next to the school systems, who are going to have children that are going to need to be able to walk to homes. And for the very first time, we're hearing that these are going to be retirement homes for people that are co-opt 55 plus. So that seems to be almost polar opposite of what we're hearing. And so I guess I'm for the first time hearing that these are going to be different housing options. So I guess, what are these going to be, and what types of homes are they going to be? Who are they going to be targeted for? Because we're hearing very different information. The traffic circle that we're hearing about, Matt, as the developer, that this is going to help solve that traffic issue. Has anybody who lives along Dubuque Street or anybody who lives along First Avenue, have you sat at the traffic circle now during a pandemic at the depot at Oakdale for more than 2 or 3 minutes? Can you imagine adding 2,500 people that are going to live in this small city that are going to sit at that traffic circle and imagine what traffic is going to look like? That this traffic circle that he's adding, that's going to solve this traffic issue? Or all these people that now live on Dubuque Street, that live in all of our subdivisions, that this traffic circle he's adding, that's going to solve this traffic situation? I think not. I think that we're going to have a huge traffic issue. And that's without any of the subdivision issues that are going to be added by, presumably, the increased traffic that's going to be added by the housing that's going to be developed south of North Liberty or east of North Liberty. There's going to be housing that's going to be added to North Liberty because it seems to be where people are building. There's a lot of development that's happening in North Liberty. And the socioeconomic diversity that we are wanting the cities to do so that we don't end up with pockets of problems. Wickham is a problem. Lincoln is a problem. And we're looking to our cities to solve those problems so that our school boards are not having to solve those problems. I feel like we're probably adding to that problem by putting socioeconomic lack of diversity in this subdivision that you're putting across the street. And so if you don't want to have those problems, then you need to put a balanced diversity in the subdivision. And I feel like by not looking at what North Liberty is doing and by not putting balanced diversity in these subdivisions, then you're putting basically the opposite of what you have at Wickham in this subdivision. We need to look at balanced diversity, and we need to be able to put what we have around these schools in a balanced socioeconomic way so that we don't have pockets of people that we're trying to bus people around, and that we have a balance for kids to be able to go to school with, so that we have free and reduced lunches that represents balance. And that's what you have in our subdivisions around right now, is some balance. And that's what this subdivision needs. We need something that has balance. And so if we are putting in 55 plus communities, then that is balance. But if that's not what we're doing, then we need to be told the truth. We were told
time is up, so thank you.
I just have one more question that we were told during the meeting, and we were told that by putting in this unit, that it was actually going to be a tax on the system in terms of the road use down the road. And it was going to be it was going to actually take away from the taxing for Coralville down the road. And I was wondering if you guys could talk to that this would be a net loss for taxes to the citizens of Coralville. And I was wondering if you could talk maybe more about that, you as the board.
Okay, we'll take notes and will likely come up during our discussion. Thank you. Jill Stein, you are next up. Go ahead, please.
Hi, this is actually her husband, Kyle. 1500 Psalm Drive, North Liberty. I would basically just like to speak against the proposed development for the numerous reasons previously discussed. I don't need to go into them all, but I think all of the prior residents in nearby areas have spoken well to all the detrimental effects of the proposal as it exists at this time. Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate it. Doug Steph, you are next up, please. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members, and also the city employees. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, great. Thank you so much. First, I'd want to thank everybody for the work that they put into this. This is an awful lot. I know there's a lot of time being spent. There's a lot of due diligence that's being done, and I appreciate everybody's willingness to support their own decisions, but also voice their opinions. I live at 3809 Stony Point Lane, and directly across from this proposed development. And when my family moved out here, one of the reasons that we wanted to was against what I heard earlier. I think it was Mr. Johnson referred to homes as larger homes. This is not about size of houses. This is not about anything other than there is a character out here of peacefulness, countryside, and just beautiful area. And that's what drove us to move out to this area. And I think that what we want to make sure that we're doing with this development, and that's why I'm not supporting it, is that what we're really doing is making such a stark change to it. And I think it's alarming that some of the hurdles that we are going over so quickly without pausing and taking note, is it really the right thing to do at this time? What does the city of Coralville really want this property to look like? I mean, after all, it's Coralville. And Stan, I think, put it well by suggesting it's an outpost. But ultimately, this is going to be the city of Coralville. Have you all driven out here and through the neighborhoods and talked with anyone yourself? I know there are some restrictions with that, and I totally understand it. But if you drive out this way, you will see varying size of homes, varying size of lots. And you will see that there isn't one area where you're going to all of a sudden come across 1,000 houses that are all 5,000 square feet, or 1,000 houses that are 1,000 square feet. It's very diverse. So I think that's something I'm concerned with in this one area of land that we're dropping in that small city. I think that it's fair to say, and I want to make sure that everybody does understand, that we want to see this developed in some regard. To suggest or even to think that it won't be developed someday, I think is closed-minded. Growth, progress, responsible growth, and responsible progress is necessary. And I think we can all acknowledge how lucky we are to be alive in this world, and considering everything that's going on in some of our own lives and people that we know. So growth and progress isn't necessarily a bad thing. But this particular project doesn't work. I think it was in the words of the city attorney, Kevin Olson. He said, quote, "We won't make money on this. We'll be putting in new roads in 20 years, end quote. So if it doesn't make financial sense, why should we do it? The Planning and Zoning Commission voted, as you know, down, almost unanimously. And again, out in this neighborhood, if you talk to anybody, there isn't anyone that has voiced support for this particular development. My closing thought would be is, if you lived out here, regardless if it was on North Liberty Road, Dubuque Street, up by the high school, in a zero lot line, small house, big house, doesn't matter. Would you honestly support this big of a development, this small city going in right there? It's very out of character. And I want to thank everybody for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Ms. Wessels, I think you've already spoken to us.
Yes, I was, that was a technical.
Timothy Fixmore, you are up next. Please go ahead. Unmute yourself. We're not hearing you, Mr. Fixmer.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you now. Go ahead, sir.
My first question is, are any of the questions that have been raised this evening going to be answered in this public forum?
They will be discussed by the council during our discussion after public hearing is closed.
So we won't be able to hear the answers, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
No, you'll be able to hear us.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My second point, Matt Adams, when he opened the meeting, he said that there were 328 planned single-family homes for this development in a total of 1,100 units. That means roughly 30% of the units are going to be single-family homes. 70% would be the remaining amount that are multifamily units that are going to be built in this development, if I did the math correctly. And with no infrastructure whatsoever for any kind of retail, shopping, or anything, this kind of housing density seems to be really irresponsible city planning to me. And I would, when you take what he also said was, he said that they were going to be grading for future improvements that'll be made by others. Other people are going to have to fork over the cash to develop what they've graded for these other uses. That also seems a little irresponsible to me. So what I would suggest is that this body tonight reject this plan and vie for a plan that has lower density with more single family units, has more green space for recreational areas to be used, and also require that the recreational areas that are set aside not simply be graded, but be finished so that the community that they are purporting to serve with this development can actually utilize them from day one. So that would be my request tonight. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Did you give us your address, Mr. Fixmore?
Yes, we're at 3824 Stony Point Lane Northeast.
Okay, thank you very much. Alan Reed, you're next. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you. Alan Reed, 175 Auburn East Lane, Coralville. And I'll take the mayor's comments to heart and ask some very simple questions that I'd like the council to address. And thank you, council, for the opportunity to do so. The previous speaker talked about whether this was a good city planning or not. So I'd like to ask the council to address in the deliberations the infrastructure. If we're going to take 3,000 to 4,000 new people and plop them down in the middle of our city, what thinking has gone into how much more police force we need to add, how much more fire force we need to add? What kind of buses and routes are you planning to add, if any, to get this mixed population to where they need to go? What about garbage pickup? I've never lived in a town where garbage is only picked up once a week for the type of taxes that we pay. I find that kind of insane. And if we're already limited to services that we have now, adding that kind of population, you must have already thought about these issues. And then finally, the gentleman who, the developer who spoke, talked about walking and putting in sidewalks. I'd ask the council, walking to where? There's a school, there's the depot, and there's nothing else. You could walk into North Liberty, but they're certainly not walking to Coralville from here. This is the Coralville City Council. So I'll stop there, Mr. Mayor, and ask that the council please think about those issues when we talk about putting those many people this far out into or sort of a rural setting. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Doris Montag, you are up next. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, I live on 2979 Dubuque Street, northeast, which is about half a mile south of this area. Most of my concerns have been addressed with the other people. I just wanted to voice my concerns, particularly impact on our local wells, the traffic compression, which has already changed significantly since the school has opened, and as people have said, the density of population in that very small area. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Oops, sorry, I'm having a problem with my mute button. Nancy Gokin, you are up next.
Did you turn it off? Turn it off. From the, turn.
I wonder if perhaps you have more than one device turned on at the same time, perhaps a phone as well as or maybe more than one computer. Somehow you're getting an awful lot of feedback.
Is that better?
That is much better. Perfect.
Okay, much better. Okay. At any rate, we moved out here in the early 90s. We were all by ourselves. There was no other houses in Squire Point. Stony Point didn't exist. Our land was wild. We grew it up from scratch. Our grandchildren grew up here. And as you can imagine, this proposal just made my heart sink. I mean, I could not believe that somebody would put that many houses in that small a space. It seemed monstrous to me, and I'm deliberate using dramatic words. It was wrong in all ways that I can imagine. Now, having said that, I will say, I don't know how many of you grew up poor. I grew up very poor. There were times in I joke with my grandchildren about the fact that I can still wash my feet in the sink because we didn't have a shower or a bathtub when I was growing up. So I appreciate what it is to be poor. And I think what you're offering the lower income people is not a reality. You think you're offering them a place in the country, but living in that dense environment is not a place in the country. It is something untrue. And one of the things I'm worried about is that if you think they're going to get groceries or something from that little commercial development, that's exactly the sort of thing that exists in inner cities where people can't buy real groceries. They can't buy fresh food, fresh vegetables, and there's no place here to walk to a grocery store or to walk to any other kind of place where real food is available or real anything. This place is completely isolated. There aren't even any sidewalks. The nearest police force in Coralville is 12 minutes away. The nearest fire department is 12 minutes away. That's by vehicle. And as we've heard, or maybe you didn't hear, they don't plan on adding any services for this subdivision. Why, I don't know. No, there are no sidewalks up First Avenue onto North Liberty Road. So as the gentleman said, walk where? So I think the people who really benefit by this subdivision are, you'll pardon my expression, the moneyed classes. That isn't us, and it isn't you, the council members, it's somebody else, and you could probably figure out who it is. It's the developers. They're the people who are going to benefit from this. It's not going to be the lower income people. They're not going to benefit from this. They're going to end up in a high density, isolated environment where they can't get groceries, where they don't have any public transportation. It's going to be other people who are going to financially benefit from this. I guess I don't have to be overt about it, but you can figure it out. Yes, it is going to mar what we wanted when we moved out here. We're being selfish. Of course, we want our nice rural environment, but now my computer's wearing down again. I think I've said what I want to say. You know, it'll be some kind of emotional tragedy for us, but we'll live. But as Stan said, this will be a permanent decision for you. Why don't you make a better decision?
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mary Ray, you're up next. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, and thank you to everyone for all of your time. I am from 265 Knowling Drive in Auburn Hills, and really want to reinforce everything that's already been said. I'm not in favor of this large of a plan in our area, and particularly am concerned about the effects on traffic downstream, as was pointed out already. One of my questions is we're talking about creating opportunities for housing, affordable housing, and I would really be interested in know what the lowest priced home is going to be sold for. My hunch is that we're talking about somewhere around $200,000 to $300,000 range, and I think that that doesn't strike me as an affordable housing option for most of the people that we are professing to be trying to help. So that is all I will say on the matter. I believe that everyone else has expressed my opinion as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you understanding you don't need to repeat. So really appreciate that. Charles Tomes, you are next. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for your time. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Your address, please.
Address is 3840 Stony Point Lane. So this development would be right across Dubuque Street from us. And, you know, I understand that it's water under the bridge, but I just want to make sure that we're addressing the elephant in the room. This development exists. The entire reason for this discussion exists because Coralville has got itself into a corner of tax increment financing, and you need some new taxable property. And that's the only reason that this thing exists. You had a voluntary annexation, and you piped a half lane wide stripe of Coralville up North Liberty Road that balloons out into literally a cornfield. And every person on this meeting, except the developers, and every person at the meetings that I've attended in the past, except the developers, has spoken negatively about this. And I understand the desire to push forward with this development and address a short-term issue in financing. But none of you are going to be in office in 20 years. In 50 years, this piece of property is not going to be in Coralville because everyone will see the reality of the situation. You're going to be using North Liberty Sewer. You're going to be using North Liberty Water. You're going to be using the roads that are primarily North Liberty and Iowa City. You are nowhere near Coralville in this piece of land. In 100 years, it's going to be a ridiculous situation to have this one cornfield be Coralville. Now, to just add to the concern here, downstream traffic basically means in any direction away from this property. It's not just south to 80, it's not just west to 380, and it's not just north to North Liberty. It's everywhere. And then you add in the fact that we have out-of-state visitors arriving to 2 different locations on the reservoir. They're going to have to drive by this if they come in from 2 of the different directions. So, this is an incredibly bad idea. And the fact that someone mentioned that there were trees planted, the developer mentioned that there were trees planted along Dubuque Street. Those trees were planted there because they wanted them to grow and mature so they could plant them within the subdivision that they were planning on building. There was no desire to have a nice forest of trees. They're too dense to be even medium growth trees. They're going to be interfering with each other. You're going to destroy half the trees just with the effort of taking them out because they're planted too closely together to get them out with a truck and replant them somewhere else by now, because the people who put them in place assumed that 5 years ago this place would have been developed. So, I just want to conclude by saying that it's understated how much impact this is going to have on all of the infrastructure that nobody pays attention to in this area. Wells are being sucked dry, and even though North Liberty just put in more wells out towards the west, we're all coming out of the same aquifers, and you're putting Solon right next to us. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello, Mayor. Can I read in the people that sent in written comments?
Yes, please do.
We received comments from Molly Yates of Locust Ridge, Jana Wessels of Cedar Drive Northeast, Stan Prohaska at 3817 Cedar Drive, Pat Jepson, President of the Spring Valley Homeowners Association, Doris Montag of Dubuque Street Northeast, and James and Nancy Gokin.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to us before we close the public hearing that hasn't already spoken? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll move on to item D, which is the consider the resolution for the preliminary plat for Forevergreen Heights, Coralville, Iowa. We'll get this moved and seconded, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Don, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution approving the preliminary plat for Forevergreen Heights, Coralville, Iowa, introduced or adopted by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Foster. Okay, discussion. How shall we proceed? I've got a whole page of notes, as I'm sure we all do. Does a member of the staff want to just kind of tackle some of the general technical issues, or do you want to get into the policy issues?
Mayor, I think it'd be better to answer any questions to the council. If there are any of those questions you want to be addressed, we can certainly do that. But I think it'd be better to see what what those questions the council are.
Okay, that's fine with me. I think that's a great way to go.
One question I have, I'd be curious. So we've seen this a few times, and P&Z has seen this before. That's April 1st of 2020. And I have the notes from that meeting, and it looks like that was the developer had brought that to P&Z just kind of for a review, and it passed that meeting 5-0. And that was the same plan that we saw at the April 28th meeting. So I would be curious. I watched most of the meeting that occurred earlier this month. Was there any comment about from the P&Z, the commission, about what had changed from April 1st to this to the January meeting?
Councilmember Foster, I'd probably be best to answer that. The concept that was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission in March wasn't forwarded to them for approval. Similarly to the review that City Council had of that in April, it was merely to gauge whether there was support and whether they should continue to move forward with further design and engineering on such a concept. Again, that general support was given by the Planning and Zoning Commission in March of this year. And to be honest, there really wasn't any discussion of that concept plan at the January 6th, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
So the difference between what was looked at on April 1st of 2020 is just that it's the same density, correct? There were a few fewer units in that one. I think, wasn't there around 900 and some in that one? And then the one that we have now has 1,000.
Correct. The development had 993 units. To clarify, the concept that was proposed or presented for feedback of this year was 993 units and had an average density of 4.75 dwelling units per acre. So slightly fewer units and slightly less average density.
But not a significant amount.
No, negligible.
Okay.
Dave, do you know why that change was made?
No, that may be best addressed by the developer.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear a response to that.
That would be either Matt or Caleb. John.
This is Matt. I can answer that question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We worked through several different concepts as we worked with city staff. And while the change, I think 9 units, were added since the April meeting. A lot of that had to do with changing the shape and design of the stormwater detention facilities and the ability to locate a few more. We also, I think we took away some lots in the South Park after working with city staff, because the initial concept had a lot of lots in that south, not a lot, I think 8 to 12 in that South Park. We removed all of those to give more green space. And we just made a few more modifications to the stormwater, so we had the area to add 9 more units.
Thank you. But so that was just that what we weren't really that wasn't approving or giving a green light to move forward necessarily, but it was just it came before planning and zoning just to kind of maybe take their temperature on it so they could see it. And at that time, they approved it 5-0.
Correct. They did not approve. They voiced their support.
They voiced, yes, that is a better characterization. So it has been seen before, and by us and by planning and zoning, and there was kind of a general consensus that this was something we would support.
That is correct.
I think one of the things for me, and you guys can tell me if I'm just slipping in my memory, but the difference between R1 and R1B was apparently more glaring to me during this plan versus the other one. And I want to say thanks to Dave for putting the difference of the definition of what those looked like in the note that you sent us, meaning a 50-foot frontage and a 5,000 square foot versus an R1, which is an 80-foot frontage and an 8,000 square feet. So to me, these lots seem very tight, very, very small. An acre is 43,560 feet. So when you get down to these 5,000 square foot lots, it's 0.1148 acres. And so one question maybe, Matt, you can answer for me is, you know, we see these pictures of these homes, but what kind of square footage are you looking at and what kind of price point? We've been working very, very hard on affordable housing, but not to the point that I want 6 feet in between these houses, because that to me screams a big fire risk. So can you talk to us a little bit about what the houses are going to look like? I know this is the preliminary plat and that's not what we're supposed to be looking at, but those are the questions in my head before I can even move forward.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'll talk on lot size. I don't have it to memory at this point. I don't have my notes handy, but these lots are 52 feet wide, would be the smallest ones. And there's about 59% of them are that. The rest of them are more in the R1 zoning width and size. They're larger. And that's about, I think, 41% of them roughly. I can't give you exact numbers, but that's the rough breakdown of these things. So these aren't teeny tiny small lots, as I think is, so I want to clarify that. But in terms of what the houses look like, I'm working with a builder who makes very nice houses. I've toured them. I've been to the sites. These are not cookie cutter homes like people have said. I think when we get through this process, the council will be happy with what the houses look like and the overall shape and affordability of these. I would say in terms of a price point, I don't want to cut the builders out from underneath them, but I think in the 350 range would max out, and that's going to be about a 2,400 square foot house. Again, those are estimates. Some of them will be 1,500-ish square feet. We're looking at single family homes that are comparable to some of the duplexes you see in terms of footprint, amenities, and sizes, but they're not duplexes. They're single family homes. There's no shared wall. People will have their own backyard, their own green space, and their own independent property. So in terms of comparable of what you might see on these single family homes, I think maybe look at some of the nicer duplexes you've seen around town, because there really aren't a lot of these in this community right now, these smaller, attainable single family homes. But the quality, I was very impressed with the ones I've walked through. Does that answer your question?
It does, but it doesn't, it did not help my thought process on affordable housing. You know, I've been playing on the mortgage calculator a little bit with the 2.9% interest rate, and you know, we can't even get to $15 an hour. And I know that maybe these aren't the people that you have as your target population.
No, actually they are. The 350 was going to be the top end of what these houses will sell for. I think it goes down from there. We have a wide variety of mixes in this plan, which I think is what makes it beneficial. We've got everything from 4-unit homes to duplexes up to single family homes that are going 52-foot wide lots up to 80-foot wide lots. So you're going to see homes sell in the high 190s, the 200s, up to maybe 350 range. There's a whole variety of them in here, which I think adds to the desirability of the development because we've got a lot of flexibility in different types of housing and different price points.
So there will be some units that are around 200.
Yes, I think that's what the intent is to keep the lowest price units around 200.
I appreciated the comment that one of the citizens made that, 200 doesn't seem, terribly affordable. And you know what? I agree with that. I would love to see more affordability. I'd love to see more housing that's going to meet folks that are kind of in that 30 to 40% AMI. But I do think this kind of $200,000 3-bedroom type home, it is something that we don't see. So, while I would like to see the lower end for sure, I do think that, as long as we're looking at some of those kind of single family units that are gonna go for about, in the high 190s or 200s, I think that is a good direction to move in. And I don't necessarily agree with the assessment that a $200,000 home would qualify as something that is low income. I think that's a nice moderate income home. So I would respectfully disagree with the characteristic or the characterization that $200,000 is what we would call low income.
No, I appreciate that, Megan. I was kind of there too a little bit, just with, and I appreciate your clarification, Matt, because when we had these discussions originally, I thought we were much in that, high 1s to 2s range. And so when you said 350s, that kind of threw me for a loop. But what if I'm hearing you correctly, that's the high end of the development, that there will be single family homes available in the low 200 range. Is that correct?
I'm not the builder and I don't have all their pricing and I don't want to misrepresent that. Okay. My understanding is that this builder that I've teamed with is they build houses better and more affordable than anyone else.
Who's the builder, Matt?
Well, I would love to tell you, but I've got a contract and it's confidential for now. They're going to be presenting more details on their houses, what they're going to look like and all that as we go through the approval process on the site plans or further down the road. I'm just not at liberty to say right now because of what the contract is, but I can tell you that they built a very nice home at prices that I've not seen in this community ever. I mean, we're talking like similar houses for 80 cents on the dollar compared to what is currently on the market. They take advantage of a lot of economies of scale and build a very nice home. So I don't know. I don't.
Too?
Pardon me?
Are you doing the commercial section too?
I am not.
Okay.
To clarify, Council, Lauren Hoppins spoke on the 2 brown pieces that are the multifamily pieces. Those are being retained by Scanlon Family Farms. And they're also retaining the commercial site that is, I think, number 9 on your agenda, up after this. I'm developing all of it, but the Scanlon Family Farms are keeping those 3 parcels. It's the only stuff that I'm really responsible for. Then putting in all the improvements is the single family and the 4 unit and 2 unit.
Matt, this is Mitch Gross. So the images that we were presented back in the last spring and then we saw again today, those were developed and created by the builder that you have a contract with. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So Kelly, this is a question for you just because that's good to know. So if this gets approved tonight and then council later on wasn't impressed or didn't feel they were of high quality, what recourse does the council have at that point? Are we in a spot to say you need to pick a different builder?
Well, not necessarily the builder, but you can the style of house. You can put whatever restrictions in that agreement that you wish. Whether you can get as specific as the mix of houses, styles from, walkouts to ranches to those. I mean, you could do that if you wished.
Okay. I feel developments in the past, we've known who the builder is. Is it unusual not to know that?
Yeah, usually you wouldn't know that at all because typically you would sell these lots to multiple builders and different people. And so, yeah, it's not very often would we know who the builder is.
So go back to Mitch's point, Kelly, will we be able to change the lot size then?
Not the lot size.
Okay, so just the type of home and all of that.
Because what you're approving tonight is
the lot size, yes.
Lot size and the site plan. So those two items are included. And then as they move forward and they bring in different plats, that would have to conform with the site plan that you're approving tonight. And so one of the things as we go forward with phases that staff would look at, and then obviously Planning and Zoning Council, is did that site plan, was that in conformance, was that phase, in conformance with the site plan that you saw at that point?
And Kelly, while you're on that, they kind of gave us the sizes of the single family homes, but not for the 2 and 4 plexes. That was kind of left blank. I had trouble, with the tiny little map, so I blew the whole thing up and taped it all together so I could study it a little bit. And it just has the single family homes, and so my curiosity of where does that leave the 2 and 4 plexes and things like that?
They will have to present those plans specifically for those units.
Kelly or Dave, can you describe or talk about areas in Coralville that have the 6-foot spacing?
Yeah. First, remind you that it's not 6 foot between houses. It's 6 foot from the lot line. So you have to have a minimum of 12 feet between houses.
And Councilmember Gross, I would confidently say that 6 foot side yard setbacks for detached residential single family homes is the standard. Even along Dempster Drive, there's that development. And to Kelly's point, the side yard setback is 6 feet, creating a 12-foot space, which is more than adequate for fire department access and which is really the principal point to a lot of those setback requirements, light, air, emergency services. So 6 feet is standard and has been in Coralville for many years.
And answer your question, Mitch, Park Drive, Park view on between Northbridge Drive and Holiday Road. Those are would be these size lots. Dempster Drive is another one. There's some on Valley View, I believe. If it's either Valley View or East View, I can't picture in my mind which area there. In Bridgewater, there was some as well. So in fact, almost everything south of the interstate would be 60-foot lots at maximum.
Pine Hill Estates.
Pine Hills, yeah.
Is another newer subdivision where that's typical.
And would the homes in Old Coralville meet that lot size as well?
They could, almost every one of those houses could fit on those lot sizes, yeah.
Okay. The Stables is another one.
Yeah,
correct.
I would think there's very few homes that would not fit on that size lot.
What I just go ahead.
I'd like to just speak a little bit to some of the comments about provision of services, fire, police, refuse collection, and so forth. I just want to make it clear that any proposed development that's submitted to the city goes through absolutely extensive staff review. And in particular, one of this size and magnitude, even more so, but there's not a department in the city that doesn't have their eyes and comments on any proposal that's submitted. So that means the police chief, the fire chief, various public works, city engineer, et cetera, have all weighed in and would certainly raise a big red flag if they were of the opinion we would not be able to properly serve this proposed development. we take great pride in Coralville in having a tremendous level of service by all our departments, but I think especially our police and fire. Our fire department has the highest rating in the state by the Insurance Rating Association for our level of fire protection. And we're certainly not going to do anything that would jeopardize that rating, because that in turn affects rates for policyholders and so forth. So I don't think that should be considered an issue at all with this discussion. The staff feels quite confident that we'll be able to adequately serve this development.
Thank you, Mayor.
Question.
I'm not sure who can answer this, but when I met with folks about this issue and then just hearing the comments, it was mentioned that there'd be 3,000 residents, 2,500 residents, 3,500 residents, 4,000 residents. How is that getting determined? Is there an estimation from the city standpoint of how many people would be living in this development?
Yeah, if you look at our census data, Mitch, the average household in the city of Coralville is 2.4. So that's what you would typically use for estimation of population. So you take 2.4 times 1,000 units on average, that would get you 2,400 people. So 3,000 to 4,000 people would be extremely difficult to get to that number. I mean, that would be extraordinary because the average across all city households is the 2.4.
Thank you.
Is Sherry on there that she can talk about the parks at all, or the green space?
Pardon?
Is Sherry?
Yes. Sherry, she was not able to get on as a panelist, but she can speak. And we have, she has some sketches that she can share of the park if you'd like to see it. This has been looked at for multiple years because, as most of you know, we've got 3 different plans that were presented on this ground. And so there's been a lot of thought given to what this could look like. And I think if you do have a moment and would like to see Sherry's sketches, I think you'll see how unique this could be as a park for Coralville. Sherry, do you want to address that?
Yeah, thank you. John, if you want to pull up that slide presentation that I'd sent. So I've had the chance to walk this property several times over the different iterations of the developments, and it has not been mapped for natural resources or flora species or wetlands, but we have a pretty good idea, I think, our park staff and myself, of what's there. And I am not a designer, so this is just my rough sketches of what we could do there on that south piece of property. I think that's one of the questions, is that south piece of property being given to us being going to be something that's a park, and I think we could really celebrate the existing landscape that's there. We would want to use the topography and create a very interesting natural scape play features. We'd also want to, just celebrate that oak savanna there that's at the top of the knob. It has wetlands, it has slopes, it has a small wooded area, and still has some open space to do some prairie remnants. So I would see this being a very natural celebrated park. This is not your park. The North Park is going to be the flat space, the place to kick the ball around and things. And this is going to be more along the lines of being able to do some of those really neat footbridges we've built, be able to have both a hardscape trail and natural surface trail, to have oak savanna picnic areas, places where we can place prairie buffer in between the roadways and or the lots that are there. And there's the picture there of oak savanna. There's a picture there of a brand new, just 1 year old emergent wetland. And then there's the wet meadow there that you can see. So there's just a lot of different diversity that we can do with that south park. And then the North Park, the developer is going to be working with us on a grading plan, have a trail around it. We can really have some fun too with just really neat places that we can, we can learn from, we can celebrate. play, learn, observe that natural environment and make some really playful spaces there in the South Park area. And then I can envision some really cool naturescape playgrounds. And if you're not familiar with naturescape playgrounds, it really does use the land, the materials, the topography, and it's not always about a structure either. Sometimes the loose materials can offer that greater sensory experience and can be more accessible for more people to be able to be creative. And so those images that you're seeing there now are just different ways that, playgrounds have evolved over the years and have become very popular.
I think in addition to what Sherry has showed, I'd remind the council that we have 10 acres that we've maintained at the corner of North Liberty Road and Forevergreen Road. So right at the corner of this development that we have kept purposely for park ground, and that has a large flat space that we could develop additional playgrounds and larger soccer fields, those kinds of things. And then I think the other thing that we're very proud of and that we have already had discussions with the school district is that on their 40 acres, we would expect to be in partners with them and develop those outdoor spaces there as well so that the public can have uses of those spaces, similar to Whitcomb and Kirkwood, Borlaug, where we have worked with them on a joint playground, on play fields, ball fields. Those things are all things that we can do on that 40 acres with the school.
I have a quick question. So are those green area, those park that Sherry talked about, would that get developed along with the development? Is it going in phases? Or are we gonna for all 6 phases to be done and then develop the park?
No, we can do that initially because the South Park would be donated to the city at that time. The developer has agreed to do the grading at the direction of the Park and Recreation Commission and director. And that's something that we don't normally get. And so Sherry has laid out areas that we could use for parking and some of the places, for example, where the location of a shelter would be, all of those kinds of things. While the contractor is developing this area, we can ask them to do the grading for us to our specifications. And that's an advantage that we have in this particular case because the city attorney has put all of that in a development agreement that would require the developer to do those things.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Sherry. That was very helpful.
And I will say I love those naturescape play areas. Those are I think that those are almost better and more beneficial for kids than a regular typical playground structure.
Yeah, this is something that we do not have in a park currently in Coralville, so it would be unique for that. The other thing to remember is that this is a native timber area. I mean, this is not something that somebody's just went out and planted some trees, and this is native to Johnson County. And it's a beautiful, if you have wandered through that area, the oaks that are in that location are huge and beautiful.
Go ahead, Lori, go ahead. You don't have a chance. Go ahead, Lori.
I wanted to change the subject. Is that all right?
Yeah, I was going to change it too, so I'll follow you. Go ahead.
Kelly, can you speak to the traffic study?
Yeah. Yes, we have studied this multiple times over the years, and one of the initial studies was done when we laid out Forevergreen Road and where that should go, and we did that in conjunction with North Liberty, and we did it in conjunction with the MPOJC, and they actually did that study for us. And if you recall, when we sold off the Pratt Farm to the individuals there, we reserved the right-of-way for where Forevergreen Road would go. And if you look at those studies, what those traffic studies says is that ultimately you'll have less traffic south on Dubuque Street than you do currently when Forevergreen Road is extended all the way from 12th Avenue to Dubuque Street. And if you think about it, one of the reasons for that is if you're on any of those subdivisions on Dubuque Street, or if you're in the subdivisions, even that these individuals were speaking from this evening, you don't have to go all the way north through North Liberty to Penn or all the way south to Oakdale Boulevard. You can cross if you want to go to North Central Junior High, if you want to go to the medical facilities that are over there, any of those facilities, you'll be able to go on Forevergreen Road. And so that does offer significant benefits to that whole neighborhood when we have that new arterial street put in place.
Well, and that takes you out to the interstate now too.
Yes, and that's, so anybody that is in those neighborhoods that want to go north to Cedar Rapids or any of those locations, that is the direction you would go. You wouldn't go all the way north through North Liberty to Penn, or you wouldn't go south all the way to Oakdale. And so that does create a change in traffic patterns. And so if you look at Dubuque Street, how that is designed as part of the subdivision is the through movement off of Dubuque Street is onto Forevergreen Road, not continued north on North Liberty Road. Excuse me, I should have said not north on Dubuque Street.
And then also there were turn lanes and roundabouts and so on North Liberty Road and Dubuque Street.
Correct. Yeah, and the only correction I'd make to some of the earlier statements, I'd remind folks that Oakdale and First Avenue is not a roundabout. That's a lighted intersection, and that is a location where we in the future want to have a roundabout, but that is not currently a roundabout at that location.
Kelly, can you also provide clarification? There were a couple residents or citizens who brought up a proposed water tower.
Yeah, we have looked at that. In fact, this assistant city engineer and the city engineer and I have met with our consulting engineer that looks into these areas. That water tower is not really needed for this development. It's needed for the overall north area of Coralville. And, you know, it's really looked at that could be a possibility in 20 to 30 years, but there is not any plan at the current time to put a water tower. And the other option that we also looked at and considered is underground storage as well, because there's some real advantages and cost-effective reasons that you might want to do that versus a water tower. So that is something that would be looked at down the road. One of the things in the water area, we do have an agreement with North Liberty that we would jointly connect our water systems there at Liberty High School, because we would both be at the current time on one-way water mains. And so this would give you a way, if there was an incident at Liberty High School, for example, in North Liberty's case, you could turn on the water from Coralville in a connection, and vice versa. If there was an issue in this subdivision from Coralville's standpoint, you'd have that connection with North Liberty. So we have had those discussions many, many years ago and actually located where those cross connections would occur. I think one of the other questions was in regards to water, Mitch, was the question was, you know, the effect on wells. This water would come back from the water plant that is currently located south of Interstate 80 on 12th Avenue. And so we would not be putting wells out there to service that neighborhood because you have to treat the water. And the plant where that treatment would occur is back on 12th Avenue, just south of Interstate 80.
One of the other things that I think is worth clarifying is some of the comments about the impact on the tax base and taxes. Could we get some of those concerns and questions addressed?
Yeah, have we done a specific financial study of this? No. I mean, we expect that these subdivisions obviously would contribute towards the overall cost of the the services that we provide our community, whether it be police or fire or water or sewer. All of the utilities, water, sewer, solid waste, all get paid by the user. That doesn't come through taxes. And so just as anyone in any other home in Coralville would be expected to pay those costs through their service fees, that's not related to the tax dollar specifically. So solid waste, water, and sewer are enterprises that pay their own way based on the users that are using those services.
Well, the way I kind of wondered if they meant it, I wanted to clarify that this is a residential area. It is not a TIF district.
Correct.
So just to clarify.
So this isn't to help generate TIF revenue.
No, we do not have an urban renewal area there and do not anticipate ever. I do not know of any particular location where this council or previous councils have set up residential developments in an urban renewal district. And so there are scattering of those in an urban renewal area, but the urban renewal area was not developed for residential purposes.
I do have to say real quick, Mitch has texted me that his computer has died. So I think it has inadvertently left the meeting, and he might need to be let back in once he gets it plugged in. I just wanted to let you know that he's not with us right now.
And I take it that all of these neat little water things meet all of our conservation requirements.
Yes, that was something that the developer did a good job of working with our staff, Amy Foster, Dan Scott. All of them have worked on those. There were several different renditions, and they now meet all of the requirements in those areas.
Kelly, could you talk a little bit about accessibility as far as bus route or proximity to the closest grocery store? I know that we are, that's the next item on our agenda is a commercial space that exists within that. Will that meet some of the needs for the community?
I would say it'll meet some of those needs, but to say that would be a grocery store that would serve all of your needs, I would not. That's designed as neighborhood commercial, and it would could serve some of those, but I would not say by any means that this would be that you would be able to get a full grocery store there in that particular location. If you were going for a full grocery store, you'd either have to go north into North Liberty or south into Coralville. As far as transit, we do not have currently north of Holiday Road is the furthest location for transit, primarily based on use. And we have not, in fact, we had to decrease some of the services along Holiday Road just because we did not have enough demand for the service. If it was determined that we could add that in. North Liberty, currently we serve North Liberty and they get 3 riders per day on the transit system on average. And so it's not, because of the distance and the time traversing on the transit system, that hasn't been something that we've seen a huge demand for.
Hey, Matt, are you still on there? Is he still with us? I just wondered if the builder, is there any shot of doing a little bit more commercial? We have a lot of price points and a lot of different types of housing, which of course we're all looking for. I like the walkability idea. It's just that this tiny little fourplex that we're going to talk about in the next item, that at best is a coffee shop type of thing. And so I was curious if your builder might be interested in any kind of commercial development, if that's been discussed at all.
Well, no, not with my builder because they focus on residential stuff. But this area was already zoned for RPUD. So we had assumed that most, if not all of this was going to be zoned as residential. In talking with staff as we were laying out this concept plan, Scanlon Family Farms wanted to retain that 2-acre parcel as commercial. And that's why it's going through the rezoning process right now. And so we never really talked about making it bigger than 2 acres, but we thought that a 2-acre parcel would be a good complement to the community and to the plan because of the people there. And so again, Scanlon Family Farms is keeping that, and they've got a mixed use commercial plan, I think, as the next agenda item. I don't know much about that because I haven't been involved in that part of it since it's not the land that I'm buying.
Councilmember Dodds, that's correct. The next agenda item is.
Yeah, I knew it was coming up, and there's a picture of it in there. It's just that it doesn't really meet real walkability, grocery things like that. That's why I was just trying to.
The first floor on that project is designed for neighborhood level service and retail. Obvious tenants haven't been identified. That's so far down the road. What's being presented in that is, again, another site plan for consideration. Exact building components, materials, and design will be further developed and also brought before the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as council on that as well. So.
There was one more comment that talking about, of course, I appreciate all the people that have called in and the concern about maintaining their privacy. I wondered if we could talk about trees. Someone else mentioned the trees are too close, whatever, but talk about landscape a little bit of this area. How will you see that as buffers along the North Liberty and Dubuque Street or any of that?
The development does have landscaping proposed around the perimeter of it to serve as a buffer. Some of that's currently in place are deciduous trees, as you'll notice when you drive by. But a lot of the specific residential development doesn't require any specific degree of headlight screening or parking lot screening that we would oftentimes typically require with a commercial type development.
So I want to kind of circle back to the walkability issue. So while there might not be a lot in terms of commercial development, I think something that would be worth talking about and pointing out is the walkability to the schools. So there are some benefits there as far as kids being able to walk to Liberty, and if and when the school district puts the elementary school in there. When we hear these discussions about boundaries and when the school board always takes those discussions up, the walkability, the neighborhood school aspect is something that is always very much indicated as a desirable feature. So there would be that walkability aspect. Kids could walk to the high school and could walk to the elementary school if and when it is built.
And you would be in school with the friends from your neighborhood. So Kelly, how come we aren't doing like 3 readings of this? I know we approved it before, but since it's a different plan, doesn't that negate it and start it over again?
No, the ordinance at 3 readings is when you have the rezoning, and this property was rezoned to an RPUD, and so that is what was approved and takes 3 readings. The site plan itself only takes 1 reading. It's a resolution. And this, as I would remind people again, this is an amendment to the previous site plan that was already approved. So one thing in the discussions I had with several of the neighbors is remind people that this is not a blank piece of ground. This land has already been approved for a site plan, and that was the one that was provided in your packets. And if the developer so choose, they could have built off of that particular plan as is. They had all the approvals they needed. All they needed to do is go to a subdivision. And so really, in my mind and in a simple look at this is this plan better than the one that was presented previously? And because that's what could be built today without any additional action by council other than subdivision. And so, I think that's one thing to remember in regards to that question, Jill.
And Kelly, can you just address the planning and cooperation that we have with the city of North Liberty? People seem to think we do our planning in a vacuum, and that's certainly not.
We've spent a lot of time working with the city of North Liberty. In fact, that's why the sewer line that serves this area is a joint sewer line, because neither city wanted to compete with each other and spend millions of dollars providing paralleling services to this neighborhood. We both have reviewed all of the road plans for that area. And in fact, the road that is immediately south of Liberty High School, the city of Coralville participated in the construction of that, or the cost for construction of that. North Liberty did the construction. We paid our share of that construction. We have worked together on where we would jointly connect our water lines. We have provided the site plans for the development so that each other can make those comments on what's happening in those areas. And so I would say that the relationship with our adjoining community has never been better, and that we work together on all of these plans. And, another one that I'd comment on is Forevergreen Road and the location of that. That was a joint study between the two communities, because part of Forevergreen Road between North Central and North Liberty Road would be North Liberty's, half of it would be in Coralville. And so we've jointly planned where that road should go together.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I think my last comment is just to address the issue of the fact that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial of this project. We certainly appreciate the input and guidance of our commissions, including P&Z. I'd say more than half the time we're on the same page and agree with the recommendation, but there are times when we don't. And particularly, I think when we don't, it tends to be on the projects of much larger magnitude that obviously involve major policy directions of the city of Coralville, and that it's clearly up to the city council to make those policy directions and sort of see the bigger picture, so to speak, and bring in other considerations that the planning and zoning just hasn't had the experience and that the council's had sitting in our seats that we have. So, we value their input, but it is only a recommendation, and that's just one more factor that we consider when we make our decision.
And there have been other instances where we haven't agreed. It does not, like to your point, Mayor, it doesn't happen all the time, but there have been some instances where, we, like you said, we have a very clear vision, and sometimes there's not always that alignment. So we do take it into consideration, but at the end of the day, we're kind of where the buck stops.
Right. Well.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that I think the planning and zoning meeting this time helped us in getting all the information together. And it was really helpful for us as a council to be reminded of this whole pattern that has been taking place on this project.
And I know, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lori.
All right. Yeah.
And to your point, Lori, it was also helpful for me to hear a lot of the comments that were made. I did go back and I watched almost all of it, and I got a lot of heard a lot of the comments and the feedback, and that was very helpful too.
To be fair to planning and zoning, and also to our community development director, Dave Johnson, this also, Dave was not here when the plan was approved in 2016 and 2016 the zoning, 2017 plan. And he was not aware, and that's my fault, that he was not aware that that approval had been made. And so planning and zoning did not have the knowledge that, and remembered that had been approved previously. And so I think that makes a big difference when you know that there is a plan in place and you're really looking at one plan versus another, versus this is a blank slate with nothing designed to begin with.
And just for clarification's sake on that, so there has been mentioned another plan that had 800 units, and that particular one was an even earlier version. Is that correct? And
Correct.
that one was not formally approved. That was just another concept that was out there. Is that correct?
Yes, that I believe was the first concept that would have been done by Southgate Development at that time.
And that one has not gone through any type of approval or vetting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yep, just one more point, Mayor. I just want to clarify. So let's say if council were to vote down today proposal, the developer could go back to the one that has already been approved with the one that have 993 units and proceed with that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes. Item E is a consider resolution approving the PUDA site plan for this same project.
Resolution approving the PUDA site plan for Evergreen Heights, Coralville, Iowa, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Foster, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Discussion? Roll call?
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Okay, resolution is approved, all ayes. Moving on to item 9, Scanlon Farms South Ridge. Again, this is the project that we've mentioned a little bit in our previous discussion, a smaller mixed-use parcel of land, 3.49 acre parcel. Dave, would you like to give the building and zoning as well as P&Z report, please?
Thank you. This property, I mentioned this earlier, it's 2.31 acres. This was zoned RPUD 1, Residential Plan Unit Development 1, in February of 2017. Scanlon Family LLC is proposing a mixed-use project with commercial on the first floor and residential on the second and third floors. A concept of the development is depicted in the plans that were forwarded to you. However, it's important to note that that design may very well change as they move through their planning process further. At which point they'll also be submitting a PUDB site plan that will also be considered by planning and zoning, as well as city council, that will have those more finite details, such as building materials, building form, landscaping, and a lot of those items. So we kind of mentioned earlier, some of the neighbors also talked about having some retail in the immediate vicinity. This development fills that need. This development currently proposes approximately 12,500 square feet of commercial space on the first floor. And there's 25,000 square feet and approximately 28 residential units planned on the second and third floors at this time. And the development review team has reviewed this. Again, that's that team that Mayor Lundell referenced previously. That includes all development stakeholders within the city organization. And it appears, as currently proposed, this can meet all of our development standards. The request can also be considered consistent with the Coralville community land use map designation of mixed use. These areas are intended to provide vibrant, safe, walkable, pedestrian environments and amenities. This is designed to provide neighborhood and service level or neighborhood level retail and services. City staff supports this request. The project furthers the goals of the comprehensive plan to promote walkable, connected neighborhoods with access to services and amenities. It also furthers efforts to provide varied and affordable housing options that appeal to a broad market cross-section. And Scanlon Farm South Ridge is located in an identified growth area for the city. And the commercial component for this project will also serve as an amenity for existing and future development in that area. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this request at their January 6th, 2021 meeting. By a vote of 7-0, the commission recommended approval of the request to rezone the property from RPUD1 to CPUD1 and the PUD-A site plan as proposed. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Item C is a public hearing on this rezoning of the Scanlon Farm South Ridge from RPUD1 to CPUD1 and the PUD-A site plan. I'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments, Mr. Clerk?
Some of the people that made comments on the previous subdivision did refer to this subdivision in passing, but there are no other written comments or I see some hands raised for public comment.
Okay, we will listen to those. John, are you able to let them in? Oh, okay. Mr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman, I'm sorry. I was considering you part of our team. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Hello again. This is Lauren Hoffman with Holland Hall Engineers, 1860 Boyson Road, Hiawatha. I'm representing Scanlon Family Farms pertaining to this particular mixed-use development parcel. Similar to the set statements that was mentioned in the previous PUD discussions, the intention here was to incorporate some commercial space into this region of the city, yet being sensitive to the surrounding neighborhood. Obviously, you know, we could have gone in with a much larger commercial piece, but then felt there was a threat, you know, of concern with the surrounding neighborhood. So we kind of landed with this smaller to medium-sized parcel, which still can provide a number of services, you know, a small restaurant with some additional tenant spaces for some other service-oriented, you know, hair salon, what have you. So I did want to just touch on that there is the element of some additional residential floors above the main level to help contribute to, the need for the commercial in that area. The walkability, we have, a sidewalk, trail, a green belt going up north along Scanlon Farms Road, in addition to widened sidewalks along Forevergreen Road, which would link to the trail systems that are to the perimeter of this property and link this up to a much bigger region than just the Forevergreen Heights project. With that, I will turn it over back to you guys. If there are any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Bob Downer, you are up next. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I had intended to comment on the last item, but being as technologically challenged as I am, I wasn't able to get in time, but that's certainly to your benefit. I just wanted to add a couple of points to what Lauren has said about this, and that's with respect to the walkability. The sidewalk requirements and trail requirements for this subdivision have been dealt with extensively. And so I do think it's going to be very possible for all residents within Forevergreen Heights to walk to the commercial establishments that would be located in this property that we're talking about now. And that certainly both from the standpoint of the developer and the staff, walkability of the development has been a significant concern. And that's also important for purposes of access to the park facility. Otherwise, I think all of the points that would have made on this have been made by Mr. Hoffman or others in connection with the discussion. So that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Bob.
I see no other hands raised at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain the first consideration of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2021-1001, an ordinance amending the Coralville zoning ordinance, the same being ordinance number 664 as previously amended, rezoning certain property located within the corporate limits of the city of Coralville, Johnson County, Iowa, and generally known as Scanlon Farms South Ridge from RPUD 1 Residential Plant Unit Development 1 District to CPUD 1 Commercial Planned Unit Development 1 District, introduced for adoption, first consideration by Councilmember Gross, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Dodds. Any discussion? Roll call.
Quinn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its first consideration, all ayes. Moving on, item number 10 is the Iowa River Landing Parking Lot 2021. This is a project that will construct a 141 stall parking lot for use by the adjacent Staybridge suites and top floor condominium units. Bid report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, we received 7 bids on this project. We were very happy to get that number of bids, that amount of interest, and even happier to see the bids were all pretty close. And so the low bid was received from Bockenstead Excavating of Iowa City. Their bid was $220,292.65. And the engineer's estimate was $241,000. Based on our past work experience with Bockenstead Excavating and the excellent bid price, I recommend we award this contract to Bockenstead Excavating. And I'll just add that the project has two completion stages. The first one is to have the site ready for chip seal by April 30th. And then we want the project to be complete and ready for use by May 15th.
Thank you, Scott. Consider the resolution, please.
Resolution accepting bids and awarding the construction contract for the Iowa River Landing Parking Lot 2021, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Nguyen, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Any discussion? Roll call.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item C for the same project, approving the contract and bond documents.
Resolution approving the contract and bond documents for the Iowa River Landing Parking Lot 2021, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Dodds, seconded by.
Seconded by Gross. Discussion? Roll call.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. Item 11 is the concept design proposal. This is a collaborative conceptual design effort between the City of Coralville and Hodge Construction to provide a concept for a pedestrian-friendly mixed-use development on the northwest corner of 6th Avenue and Highway 6. The resolution, please.
Resolution approving a concept design proposal with Newman Monson Inc. for the northwest corner of 6th Avenue and Highway 6, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Second.
Second by Nguyen. Discussion?
I'd like to thank the staff from Coralville for working so hard on this project, and I know it's going to turn out great.
I'm sure it will. It's
Been
it'll
a
be
long
great.
time working.
We're excited about it.
So I just have one question. I'll make it quick. The involvement of Hodge Construction, are they sort of a consultant from a building perspective, contractor perspective, or would they be the contractor for the project?
My best response to that is potentially both. We are certainly bringing them in folding them into this process for their development expertise and construction expertise. But they could also very well be the developers for such project as well.
Okay, just curious. Thank you. Roll call.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Resolutions approved, all ayes. Item 12, fiscal year 2022 budget. This will set the maximum levy hearing on the fiscal year 22 budget as required by the state of Iowa. This hearing is an additional step in the budget process and created by legislation passed during the 19 legislative session. This public hearing that we're setting will be at our next council meeting on February 9th. Don?
Resolution setting a date for a public hearing on the maximum levy for the fiscal year 2022 budget, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Foster, seconded by.
Second.
Second by Nguyen. Any questions or discussion?
I was just curious, when are we planning to do the meeting with the department heads, the work session?
We have discussed whether or not we would actually even do that this year because of the impacts of COVID and on our budget specifically. And so we've got some suggested steps at the work session to go through with you at the budget.
Okay, thanks.
Roll call, please.
Gross.
Aye.
Wynn.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Resolution passes, all ayes. Item 13, I'd consider a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented or amended.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask the council to consider a motion to approve the consent calendar A through W inclusive.
Okay, moved by Dodd, seconded by,
Second.
ooh, that was close, Gross. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Wynn,
Aye.
Dodds,
Aye.
Goodrich,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Consent calendar is approved, all ayes. City Administrator report.
Yes, Mayor. First of all, I would just like to express my condolences to Kevin Olson on the passing of his mother this last weekend. And our thoughts and prayers are with you, Kevin. Also, would just like to report that the city engineer has officially given me his notice that he'll be retiring this year. And Dan, in 2021, this will be his 35th year of service to the city of Coralville. And one of the things that Dan and I always laugh about and joke about is that Dan has been around long enough that First Avenue and Highway 6 has been redesigned and constructed 3 times. Dan will be around a while longer. He'll be here till the end of March. And so we all obviously have time to express our thanks to Dan. But, Dan's done a lot of things for our community. And one of the things that I look forward to over the next 2 months is thinking about all of the projects and things that Dan's been involved with. And I think one of the things that we can thank Dan for is that all of the flood improvements that have been put into place into our community. And one of the things Dan and I talk about is that neither one of us after the 1993 floods would have hoped that we had to ever go through another one. And in fact, went through worse floods in those latter years. And one of the things I remember vividly about Dan is a picture of him in the front of the Press Citizen emptying out his boot from the floods. During those times. So just like to thank Dan for all of his service. We'll have a couple of months here yet to remember all of the things that he's done for our community. But we really do have received a lot of benefits and cannot thank Dan enough for all of his service to Coralville. So thank you, Dan.
Thanks. Yep, you bet.
And last thing I would just like to point out is that as we move on over the next couple of weeks and months in regards to the COVID vaccine and as more opportunities get out there, just like to remind folks to please be patient because there's a lot of folks that need to get the vaccine obviously yet. And one of the things that we'll be working with both Johnson County Public Health, but our hospitals as well, is keeping people educated locally as to where they're at in regards to who can get service. And just received a couple of requests today from hospitals that, how can we help them get that word out as to when the appropriate people are to get vaccinated. And so we will be working on those, being able to do that, and just remind folks that, it's as in a lot of services, some people don't have computer services or participate in social media and other ways like that. And so we have to be creative about how we get that word out. And we'll do that and ask for your help in that as well. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Mayor's report, very brief. Again, also echoing a couple things Kelly said. Kevin, my sympathies to you. I super appreciate the fact that you drove here today to be at the council meeting tonight from Minnesota, and now you're going back tomorrow for your mother's funeral. That is dedication, and you probably could have zoomed in from Minnesota, but it's great to have you here. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin. And a little trivia about Dan is that Dan and I, even though he's been here for 35 years, Dan and I were colleagues together. We both worked for the city of Iowa City back in the day before either one of us ended up in Coralville. So we both go back a ways together. So,
that's true.
Yeah. And just the last thing is a shout out to the streets department. Another great response to the snowstorm. Just superb. Great job. City attorney's report.
I'd like to compliment Dan on his early retirement. That's all I have, Kevin.
Nothing. I appreciate all the staff and all your well wishes. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Committee and council members reports. On my screen, Hi, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor and Kevin. My condolences. You driving all the way here, just show the dedication that you have for the city, and we thank you for that. I don't have much. I would like to thank Mike for the opportunity of the lunch and learn with Dr. Benny Hopkins. That was great. I certainly learned a lot. And just like Megan said, he is such a joy character. That was wonderful. And I hope that post-COVID, we would have something similar so that more of the public, the general public, get to enjoy, Dr. Hopkins instead of just the staff. That would be great. And thank you to the crew, the street crew, just like Mayor said. I mean, I hear them all night going around plowing the street and for them to work late into the night and early in the morning just to make sure that the roads are safe. That's dedication right there. I want to remind our citizen that the down payment assistance program, which also know on our website at the home buyer assistance program, is still available. So if you are looking for that, for some help to purchase home, go on our website and check that out. It's $25,000, I believe, for assistance to put down on a new home. And then I just heard today that there is $40 million in Federal CARES Act fund to provide financial relief to eligible restaurant and bar that was impacted during COVID-19. So I don't know if we have that information on our website or not. I've just learned of that, but if we could put that on our website so that local businesses that got impacted can look into there and get some relief. I know that $40 million sound really large, but it's going to go really quick. So if businesses in Coralville could get a hand on that, that would be great. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jill, you are next on my screen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We had our Parks and Rec meeting last night. The commission had asked that Mayor Lundell and our administrator, Kelly Hayworth, come and address the commission on how the COVID has impacted our community. And so I just wanted to put a thank you out to both of you gentlemen. You have plenty of meetings on your books already, but the commission really appreciated you coming and answering those questions for them. So thank you to both of you. Judy Joyce also presented about the Clear Creek Stream Bank mitigation, and so we are very excited for the new projects that we're going to be involved in with that down the way. I wanted to also say thanks to Dave Johnson because he kind of got thrown into the fire with a lot of this stuff with this planning tonight, and so I know you took a lot of heat, so thank you so much for your patience and answering questions for all of us. And Dan, I'm not going to say goodbye to you yet. We're not done with you yet. So, and Kevin, I'd give you a big hug if I could. So just know that I'm thinking of you and your family.
Thank you, Jill. Megan's next.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to keep it short because it is late, but the one item that I had was to put a plug in for the DVIP Super Bowl. As many of you know, I serve on the board of directors of that organization. It's an organization that's very important to me. And their big fundraiser this year is going to be a drive up and a delivery in a drive up and a delivery format. And they are encouraging the public to order early, to put their orders in early, because the supply that they will have is limited due to the new format. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at their Facebook page to get that information. Again, it's a great cause, and it's one of those, they're one of those nonprofits that has really faced a lot of challenges due to the pandemic. So really hope we can support that great organization. And Kevin, just my condolences to you. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And, you know, like everyone said, we appreciate your dedication and your hard work always. And I'm in denial about Dan retiring. When I saw that, I was like, no, say it isn't so. But you know, you have served this community so well. The one thing I always say is that the work that Dan has done is kind of a double-edged sword, because it's so seamless and it's so incredible that you don't always see it. And I know that one of the things that I've really enjoyed is going on the tours and seeing all the work that has gone into the flood mitigation efforts. And the projects that happen all over Coralville that Dan is a part of. And it is, you've just been a tremendous asset to this community. So you will be missed. And I'm glad that you're sticking around for a couple more months. And that is all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Lori, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't repeat, except Kevin, my sincere best wishes to you and your family in the loss of your mother. And Dan, congratulations. Look forward to couple more months with you. And remember your fire hydrants. If you have a fire hydrant that needs to be shoveled out, give it some attention. Thanks.
Thank you. Good advice. And Mitch.
All right. I've never been last before, so this has been fun. Couple of things. First, yeah, Dan, I won't say too much now. I'll save it for the big tribute meeting in a couple of months. But obviously, you've been great. So congratulations on a well-earned retirement. I think the two things I wanted to see is, at one point we had 40 some attendees in the chat. Now we're down to 2, but here's the government teacher in me. I love civil discourse and participation. And I'm sure a lot of the people logged off very disappointed and maybe a little disgruntled, but I deeply, deeply appreciate hearing their voice and them exercising their right. And I thought we had a really civil, great discussion tonight from everybody. So even though I think the vote probably didn't go the way folks did, I honestly, based on all the feedback I'd received, had opened my mind quite a bit to that vote and was really listening and ruminating on the points that folks were made. But I also want to give every staff member on here a huge shout out as well, because I thought every question was so well and thoroughly answered from the legal aspect, from the planning aspect, from the administrative aspect. From the Parks and Recreation aspect, any reasonable doubt I was having or questioning, it got put away by the great, excellent work of the staff. So thank you, city staff. Because I know it's, as an educator, sometimes I feel when people want to tell you how to do your job, because since everyone has kids, I think they know what's best for education. I'm sure since everyone owns a house, they think and lives in the city, they know how it's best to plan. So I appreciate the great work that you guys did. And lastly, I do want to say to you, Kevin, sorry. I'm deeply sorry. I've been there and it sucks. And I hope it makes you feel a little better knowing that so many people are thinking about you and wishing you the best. That's all I have. I'm sorry, my computer died earlier. That's a council record. I've never had that happen. My battery, it said 6%, 5, 4, 3, and then gone. So sorry about that. That's how long we went tonight. So hopefully work session will be quick.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Gross.
Second.
Well, I think seconded by everyone.
No, yeah.
I'm sure you're all in favor. So we are adjourned.